All right, so we are going to do a little work on the 5152 review worksheet. So if you look at the front of the page, everything you're given is in which form? Standard or Vertex? This is Vertex form. So find your notes on Vertex form to help guide you. This is our last ditch effort to make sure we know this. So the Vertex form of a quadratic is the a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. So if I look at these parts, I'm going to go ahead and write this, that a is 2 because that's what's outside the parentheses. And if it's a positive 2, a positive number, we know it's going to go upward. So I'm going to just remind myself it's upward and it has a minimum vertex, just my little reminder in my brain. And the 2 also creates a vertical stretch. So when the absolute value of a is greater than 1, whether it's 2 or negative 2, 10 or negative 10, it's going to give you this skinnier graph. Whatever you squared was your y value and you just doubled it. So y is jumping really quick. So when it asks you down here for your transformations, because a is 2, it doesn't flip it. So that's not a transformation, it's just your upward u, but it is going to be a vertical stretch. Or it's going to look more narrow. Okay, the next part of the function is h. So what is the h value? And be careful with this. If you look at your function, it says x minus h. The minus sign is part of the function. So h is not 1, it's actually what? Yeah, because this is truly x minus a negative 1 squared. So if h is negative 1, doesn't that move the graph left? So what am I talking about? That parent function's here at 0, 0. Boom. And if I tell you to move it left, you're moving the x value 1 to the left. So that is going to be 1 unit left. That is a shift or a translation. Now, if I'm moving my vertex 1 unit to the left, isn't that where my axis of symmetry is? Now, I know this doesn't ask for it, but we need to make sure we know that. I already know, even though it doesn't ask me, that my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. All right, so that's good news. Now, k is the next value, and that's the guy that's added or subtracted on, which is 1. So what's that do? Well, whatever this was, we added 1, so it's going to move it up, because we're just saying whatever your y value was, add 1 to it. Take 1 away from it. So this moves it up or down. In our case, it's going to go 1 unit up. Okay, so here I am. I went from 0, 0, left 1, up 1. There's my new vertex. I can visualize my graph opening upward, but I need it to be more accurate, so to make a T-chart. So I'm going to make a T-chart. What do I always put in the middle of my T-chart to help me get a good graph? My vertex. So what is my vertex? Well, didn't we shift it left 1, up 1, so negative 1, 1. Your vertex is HK. So we have that in our notes here. The vertex is HK. The axis of symmetry is x equals h. Okay, so put your vertex in the middle and then pick something to the left of it and pick something to the right of it. Now, you want a more accurate graph, pick additional points, but I'm okay with 3 points on this worksheet. All right, best way I think to do this, take your value, plug it in. So I'm just going to plug this in. I'm using my calculator, but I could use my brain. 2 exactly as it is. 2, and then I'm going to put in negative 3 plus 1, close it, squared plus 1. All right, so once I get that in, it gives me 9. I'm going to go to my next number. Now, for my calculator, I just hit the little up button, and I move it around. For some of your calculators, you hit up, and so you highlight the whole thing, you hit enter. I don't think any of you have graphing, but graphing calculators, you hit second entry, and it brings up the last entry. All right, I got a 3 out. This should be pretty quick because I'm just reusing this. Oh, I want to get rid of my negative. I got a 3 again, and because we did this symmetrically, we should get out a 9. So again, on this worksheet, 3 points is good. Extra points are great. Some people say, what about the y-intercept? Well, wouldn't this be my y-intercept? Because the x is 0. Some of the y-intercepts are too big or too small, so it's not always the best point. All right, so negative 3, positive 9, negative 2, 3, 0, 3, and then 1, 9. And then sketching that U-shaped curve. What was that U-shaped curve called again? What's that U-shaped curve called? Anybody? Euler? Parabola. Thank you. Good. Okay, well, let's flip it over and see how you feel about the next one. Oh, before I flip it over, just for fun. How about domain and range? I know it doesn't ask for that. Domain, as my graph goes up, doesn't it get wider? So it's easy to see it grow up, but you have to also see it's getting wider. So the domain is always going to be negative to positive infinity. The range has a low of 1. Remember, there's a minimum at the vertex, and the minimum is y equals 1. And then it goes up forever. So low bracket to high infinity with parentheses. Okay, now let's flip it over. What form is the back in? All of these on the back are standard form. All right, so I'm just going to do number 5. Standard form, we've got the ax squared plus bx plus c. So I think I'm going to write that a is -1, b is -8, and c is -18, just to help my brain. Now, in standard form, I can't just look at it and tell you how it shifts. I need to start by finding the vertex, and that comes from help with the axis symmetry. So I need that formula. So x equals a -8 over 2 times a. Okay, so remember, it's the opposite of b. So that's going to be +8 over 2 times -1. I recommend you do this by hand, and then you can use your calculator. We've got to watch putting that in. So what is your axis of symmetry? -4. So you need it to say x is -4. That is your vertical line, and the graph's counting by 2s. There's your vertical line, your axis symmetry. We know our vertex falls here. We just don't know how high or low it is. Okay, how do I get my vertex? Well, isn't the axis symmetry the x value of the vertex? So that's what I was referencing right here. That's the x value. How do I find y? I plug it in. So I'm just going to write this so you can see it. I'm going to plug in the opposite of my x value squared using parentheses properly. And when I'm talking about using parentheses properly, a lot of people say, well, 2 negatives cancel. Not with the power. This is actually mean -16. But we're going to type the whole thing in the calculator, and I would never see that I got it wrong. So negative parentheses, -4, power on the outside. You see that? There you go. So this is where we get a lot of errors. -8 times -4 minus 18. All right, I got -2. Perfect, then we agree. So my vertex is what? -4, -2. Be careful, you're counting by 2s here. Okay, which way does my graph open? Why? Okay, a is a -1, so my graph is going to open downward. And without even graphing it, doesn't that give me a maximum value? What's the highest point on the graph if it drops downward? Yep, but you're going to write it y equals -2, agreed? So make sure your axis symmetry is x equals, this is y equals. Let's get a better graph. Would my graph be wider, more narrow, or the same as the parent function? Well, it's a -1. The negative reflects it over the x-axis. That gives me the downward graph. And the 1 doesn't change the size, so it'll be the normal width. All right, pick some, I'm just going to pick 2 values here, above and below. I don't want to rework my calculator, so I'm going to go in and just find that last selection and change that -4 to -5. I got -3, and let's double check ourselves. -3. All right, so if you wanted some more points, you could certainly put them in. -5, -3. So if you wanted to see where your graph's really supposed to go rather than just estimating it, get some more points. Okay, I know it doesn't ask for this, but just to stretch our brains, domain and range. Well, the graph goes down, but it keeps getting wider. So negative to positive, infinity. How about the range? This time there's a high, right? So it always has to go from low to high. So what's the low? Negative infinity, and the high is? Yeah, so Whatever the y value of your vertex, that is your max or min. That also is the cap for your range.